Hello, everybody. It is Thursday, February 18th. This is the February public meeting of the ANC 5D's Zoning and Development Committee. Welcome, everybody. As always, we're having these meetings for the past year virtually over Zoom due to the pandemic. And I thank everybody for attending. There is one item on the agenda, and after we work through the item, if there are other issues that members of the community want to bring up, we're, as always welcome here to hear your proposals. I'm going to turn it over right now to Leah Jackson, who is the agent representing the first item, the first and only item on the agenda is a PUD scheduled for 1900 Fenwick Street, Northeast DC. Good evening.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Kevin. My name is Lila Batiste. I am an attorney with the law firm of Holland & Knight, and we serve as land use and zoning counsel to the owner of 1900 Fenwick Street, Northeast. That's the Profish facility. I'm joined this evening by Jeff Goins of PGN Architect. PGN and Holland & Knight are working with Profish on a PUD application for the redevelopment of that site with the mixed use project that has approximately 14,300 square feet of ground floor retail and production uses, and then 123 residential units above. I also want to note that Greg Caston, the owner of Profish, he's listening in on the meeting as well as participating. So before I get into kind of our presentation, I want to acknowledge I'm getting some someone so Jeff, if you can mute your line. Okay, thank you. I want to acknowledge Commissioner Sabrina Rhodes. She's the single member district for ANC 5D01. Where the property is located, and she was gracious enough to meet with Greg and me on last Friday. And then, of course, Kevin participated in that meeting and was kind enough to invite us to present to this committee. And it really does give us an opportunity to work with the ANC very early on in the process. Just in terms of overview of the process, we mailed our notice of intent to file the PUD application last Friday, February 12th, which means by the zoning regulations, we are not able, well, the earliest opportunity that we can file the PUD application is March 29th. And so we look forward to presenting the application, or at least the preliminary plans. Again, the application isn't fully developed, but Jeff is going to walk through the preliminary plans for the project, including the project design this evening. And then we'll continue to work with the ANC through the PUD process. And so with that, I will turn it over now to Jeff.
All right, thank you, Lila. Good evening, members of the community and the ANC. Kevin, is it okay if I share my screen?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay. I think you have to allow me to do that. It's Kevin. Okay. It's saying the host has disabled it.
Let's see how do I figure out how to do that. Okay, let's have a look more. I may need to make you a co-host. Is that? We'll try that.
Okay.
All right, I've elevated you to a co-host, and hopefully that gives you the privileges
to
share your screen.
All right. Okay, does everyone do you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Excellent. We're very excited to present this project tonight. We've been working off and on with Greg and Ivy City on a couple of projects, including their restaurant, for several years now. And we're very excited to present this mixed-use residential project. I'll kind of go through some of the upfront stuff quick, and if you have questions, we can come back to those. This is a kind of a zoning summary because, as Layla mentioned, we're taking a PUD and we're converting it from a PDR use to an MU7. That will be the official designation through the PUD process. That'll allow us 80 feet in height, which is about 10 feet less than the current HEX, which stands at 90 feet, and an FAR of 5.76. There's 7 total stories of the building, plus a penthouse, and the first 2 floors, I'll get into the design, but overall we made those to kind of fit in with the warehouse and the industrial uses of Ivy City. The sheet is really kind of to kind of show the open air and light that we designed of the building, mainly kind of the focus on the typical floor, the 5 residential floors. You can kind of see all of the units around. This would be Fenwick here, this would be Oakey, and then Gallaudet all have air and light. And then we have a very nice courtyard that's 41 by 100 feet. So there'll be lots of air and light for all the units. And we really wanted to kind of focus on that. This is a vicinity map. And once again, this is just kind of to show the main thoroughfare of New York Avenue, the kind of commercial district of Ivy City, and then the fabric of the residential district of Ivy City, and kind of where our site kind of fits within that general area of Ivy City. This is a comprehensive future land use map, and I apologize for the red right here. The red does not mean high density. It's kind of just to locate our property. This is actually the site that the future land use calls for medium density residential along with the PDR use. Our site is the red box right here, and this would be the House of Prayer, and this would be the Carmel School. And this would be New York Avenue here. Once again, this is kind of, this would be that block that the future land use map kind of showed, and this would be the 1900 Fenwick Pro Fish site. And there's Ivy City Smokehouse across the street with the City Winery. Kind of giving you some of the major, and of course, HEX right there. This is kind of the views looking down Oakey Street, Gallaudet, and Fenwick Street. Kind of, this is looking towards HEX, and you can kind of see the Pro Fish location there. And this would be from HEX looking back towards Pro Fish. We could kind of see the trucks right there. And this would be looking from Gallaudet, and this would be the kind of the warehouse, and this would be kind of the beginning of the residential district down inside Gallaudet Street here. But this would be looking back towards Fenwick. And this is kind of just a north-south view. We kind of want to just capture the view. If you got off New York Avenue looking straight down Fenwick, obviously you would see the HEX to your left, and this would be the Pro Fish site. And then if you were turning off of West Virginia looking up on Fenwick, you would see the HEX and the warehouse and the distillery, I guess is right here, and then the Pro Fish site there. Well, now I'm going to kind of get into the design. I think when we started this, we were very excited, and we really kind of wanted to focus on the pedestrian experience. As somebody that lives over here on Southeast, I'm a frequent diner of Ivy City Restaurant, and we love coming over there. But one of the things we noticed, obviously, this is not a pedestrian-friendly site. There's a lot of curb cuts and a lot of trucks. So as we designed this, we wanted to kind of make this pedestrian friendly. The sidewalks are really narrow, so we actually set the building back an additional 5 feet on the ground floor. And as you can kind of see, I wanted to just kind of show a before and after footprint of what that design is going to look like. You can kind of see all the curb cuts here, and they actually go all the way. There's really no sidewalk there now. So there'll be a nice sidewalk there, and as we proceed with the design. There is a 20-foot alley. I think that was a question, but that is confirmed. This would be the public alley. And the main garage entrance here is off Gallaudet, and the loading would be off the public alley, which would be accessed off Oakey. This is kind of a rendered site plan, and we kind of wanted to show you this with the scale of a lot of the commercial buildings and how our building fits within that fabric of Ivy City. And obviously this is Gallaudet Street here, Oakey Street and Fenwick. What you're seeing here is a lot of, we're showing the green roof. This will have a green roof. And this kind of design right here, I'll get into when I get into the penthouse plan. but that is kind of an urban farm grow area that we have on the penthouse, a really unique idea. The ground floor plan, once again, kind of go back to kind of focus the pedestrian friendly experience that we wanted. You can kind of see in the red here, the retail service PDR uses, as Layla mentioned. There's an industrial PDR use here. The main garage entrance off of Gallaudet Street with the public alley. The loading will be tucked away in the center of the building in the back of the alley. And also with the pedestrian experience, we kind of really wanted to have this grand lobby, sort of like what Hex has. This will actually be a 2-story lobby here. And once again, we wrap the retail service PDR uses around Oakey Street, and this would be Ivy City. So they'll look directly towards Ivy City Restaurant as well. This is the second floor. So this is actually a really unique idea as well, because there is a amenity service PDR area that once again faces the main commercial street. And then we've got 9 residential units kind of on the Gallaudet Street. You can kind of see, and I'll mention this when we get to the typical floor again, but all the residential units have balconies. So they all have outdoor space. These have their own private in the courtyard. You can kind of see there's a lounge and a gym and a yoga that all the residents of the building will have access to. But couple of the other things, we were obviously thinking a lot about the pandemic and things that everyone's gone through this year. So these you'll see in the facade, but there's roll-up doors here with these large terraces. So if the residents are using this, this whole area can roll up and be open to air and light. I think will be a very refreshing idea if you're using this space. And I'll highlight that when we get to the elevation so you can kind of see. And this would be that double-heighted lobby looking down from the second floor. Now, this is a typical floor where we have 21 residential units per floor. You can kind of see all the balconies. These are nice balconies. They're 5 feet wide and 5 feet deep. And on the corner, they're 4 by 8. You can kind of see the unit sizes here, the open air and light that we have in the back. I think I said 100 feet, but I think it's actually 86 or something like that. But you can see it's very large courtyard for all the units to have lots of air and light and space. This is the penthouse plan. Back to this plan too. We have 5 residential floors here, and they stack all the way up. The building makes up approximately 123 units. This is the penthouse plan where we have 7 residential units. You can kind of see how they're set back. They have their own private outdoor area. The rest of the roof will be green. But over here, we really, and this is also highlighted in our facade design. This is in kind of an urban farm that's going to be placed on the roof with the 7 residential units. There will be an amenity area here. It's kind of tucked in and kind of small. It overlooks the courtyard. There'll be seating areas and kind of like a bar area here that overlooks the courtyard for more air and light. And a little pavilion so everyone can enjoy the garden. This is the top of the penthouse. So really, we just kind of wanted to highlight the green aspects of the design. There'll be a green roof on top, and this would just be your mechanical penthouse screening area where we're going to have the HVAC units, and this would be the elevator overrun. And I kind of get into this right here, but this is kind of an architectural embellishment that we have along the facade. In fact, there it is right there. You can see it. So when we designed the building, we kind of thought a lot about what we really wanted to do here and just design an elegant brick building with lots of brick detailing. And you can kind of see, once again, the pedestrian experience that we wanted to create along the ground floor. These were those garage doors that I was talking about on the second floor that will roll up. And you can kind of see these large terraces that we have on the second floor as well. And then you can kind of see it turns to residential over here. And you can see how the floor changes here to residential on that second floor. And this idea here was that we have this urban farm on the penthouse, but we also wanted to take this vertically along the facade and have a green wall that kind of comes up and goes across a kind of an undulating embellishment, if you will, or terrace that then kind of connects back to that urban farm. And we just thought this would be a great green statement to kind of highlight what's happening on the roof and make it part of the facade. Now, this is the Oakey Street, the north elevation. So this is looking towards Ivy City, and you can kind of see, once again, those garage elements that roll up with the large balconies along that second floor, which really opens up that use, that amenity use, PDR and service use. This would be your penthouse, and there's the embellishment. This would be on Gallaudet. So as you're coming up Fenwick, we kind of have that green idea that's along Fenwick, but then it kind of pulls around and comes down along the Gallaudet Street, and this would be the urban farm. So we kind of are really just using that as a feature to highlight what's happening on that penthouse. Lots of really nice brick detailing and just simple reveals, a couple of brick colors. Now this is the courtyard facade or the alley facade. This would be your loading area. And I think a lot of these materials, it's kind of hard to see the designation here, but we were thinking this would be corrugated metal, some panelized facade inside the courtyard. We want to kind of maintain that industrial look. So I think corrugated metal, and there's a synthetic panel that kind of looks like wood that we were kind of proposing inside there. We'll eventually have all of those color details and everything for the community. We do have some kind of enlarged details of this green wall system. We're in the preliminary stages of studying what that will be and exactly how it works, but we kind of wanted just to kind of highlight some images and what that will look like for the community to see. And this is kind of the scale as a pedestrian walks by on the street level, and the green wall would be above them, starting there at that second floor. And this is kind of just, once again, to kind of show how we were thinking about the project. We actually have two different scales of brick, and they course out really nice. So if you use a standard brick, you would have 4 courses here. And then if we use the Roman brick, it'd be 3. And then the more narrow brick would be 4. So we decided it would really create a nice texture and palette over in Ivy City with some nice reveals. And there's actually some really neat, this will be a cornice that will be built out of brick. It's kind of hard to see here. We'll provide some enlarged details as we move along in the design. And this kind of an arrow facade, kind of looking down. You've got your Hex here, your warehouse here, City Wineries over here. But you kind of see the green roof, the elevator overruns. This would be the kind of the urban farm area, and this would be our embellishment, if you will. And this is kind of the last image I have in the presentation. Now this is a little deceiving because we're actually inside the warehouse across the street, but we did kind of want to give a true view of what the elevation would look like. And sometimes creating those perspectives, we have to, but this is a true view of the facade. It's just, we're inside the building across the street, but as you can kind of see, it's really about the movement of brick details, nice balconies, and the pedestrian experience is what we really were focused on in our design, with the nice element of the green wall and the urban farm on the top. That's kind of the last slide I have, and I'm happy to answer questions or and go from here.
Yeah, so Kevin, that really concludes our presentation to the committee. And so we're happy to answer any questions that you have about about the project at this point. Again, the application won't be filed until the end of March. So you're really kind of seeing the preliminary design and thoughts as we prepare the application.
Well, I thank you guys for Jeff, for giving us a very detailed presentation. It's very helpful for us to understand how the building will look in context to the neighborhood buildings, to understand that it will be shorter than the Hex building. Really good presentation. I think there are some questions. We do have some architects and some people who work in the development community on the committee. So I'll turn the floor over to community members, neighbors who might have some questions.
I have a question. This is Commissioner Rhodes, 5D01. The 200, what was it? You sent a letter out to 200 homeowners, the homeowners that are 200 feet from the project. Has those letters been sent out?
Hi, Commissioner Rhodes. Yes, so those went out on last Friday after we met with you.
Okay, is it possible I can get a list of those homeowners?
Yes, so yeah, it's the list of property owners within a 200-foot radius of the
Yes.
site. I will forward that to you.
Thank you.
Jeff, I will ask a question. The height of the building for this PUD, is this the maximum height? Like, had you considered an even taller building if that had allowed more affordable housing in? Like, why did you stop at? Just curious, why did you stop at 80 feet? Was it possible to have gone more than that?
No, the zoning would allow 90 feet, but the Height Act is your right-of-way street plus 20. The right-of-way at that corner up there is only 60. So the maximum building height that we could go to per the Height Act would be 80 feet. We could not go to the PUD allowable 90 feet. Hex has a frontage along New York Avenue, so theirs was a little different.
And just for the benefit of community members, neighbors who might be viewing this, who aren't land use attorneys or architects, could you explain the calculation which is dependent upon the street width? Could you explain that in like layman's terms for everybody?
Yeah, the right-of-way width is from your property line from one side of the street to your property line along the other side of the street. Actually, not property line, it's the right-of-way width, according to DDOT. And that sometimes is the street width, but sometimes it allows an extra area. And at that corner, the maximum allowable right-of-way that the city has rights to is 60 feet. So our height is allowed to be 60 feet plus 20, which is what the Height Act allows for a maximum building height along the right-of-way. So if it was 90 feet, it would be 110. If it was 70, it would be 90.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have a question. Speaking to you through a sign language interpreter. Thank you for the presentation. Anyway, a question for you about the street level connection. It seems as though there are a lot of amenities that are on top of the roof or that would be inside the building, maybe not accessible to people on the street level. So for your building design, what have you been thinking about so far? Can you tell me a little more about how you plan to emphasize the connection to the street level? Not I don't see that strongly in your design so far.
Well, we're at the early stages right now. I think what we really wanted to kind of focus on was the pedestrian experience as they walk by. So that the first floor is set. The first two floors are at 22 feet and height, I do believe. 24 feet. And that was kind of our pedestrian experience. And the first floor is 14 feet. So as we designed, we wanted to kind of focus on, obviously the retail uses would be activated. So as the pedestrian walks by, we would like that activity that they would feel and experience. But we also wanted, because there's not much of a sidewalk there, so we set that first floor back 5 feet. And then the middle of the building, which is the main residential entrance, we have the two-story lobby, and we kind of wanted that to connect. From a material standpoint and a scale, I think we were thinking that this would be brick with some kind of glazing and mullions, and we could probably work a lot more on kind of what that mullions and how that storefront works with the scale of a pedestrian and a human, so that that experience is felt, and we'll provide lighting and things like that. But I think overall, we wanted the uses inside to activate and we wanted to make sure that there was a nice sidewalk for them to experience.
Yes, I was thinking there's really no space for any outdoor dining or any areas where there's like places to hang out outside to coordinate to be inside. So I would love to see more thought put into that. And that takes me to my next question about the community benefit. I know that it's kind of an evolving process with time, but you brought up urban and rural. So I wanted to know, who's using the urban, who's using the urban farm, or who are the beneficiaries of that?
Well, I think we're in the early stages of what that's going to be. I think the overall idea was that as we progress, whether it's a commercial use and as well as use for the residents of the building, we're kind of working on those details as we start. We just kind of wanted to provide this idea of kind of an urban farm in that space, and how that gets used and parsed out. I think we're working on these details now. And just real quick about the outdoor seating, and to go back to your question, I think that's how that connection works. I know across the street with Pro Fish, they have, it's pretty open, and they have those tables in there that you can go in there and eat when it's nice at the fish market there. So I think as we work towards those PDR uses and the retail uses there on the ground floor, I'm sure we can make that connection. And thank you for that idea.
Is the sidewalk?
Sure, thank you.
Is the sidewalk wider on Gallaudet Street? Like, how deep is the sidewalk there? Is that deep enough to allow outdoor dining?
I don't think so. I'm not exactly sure what I think the way that we've set the building back, I'm going to share my screen again.
Yeah,
because
it was one of the slides had like a top-down view, and it just
yeah,
like,
because I think what we tried to do, as you can see, we did not set the building back along Gallaudet because it does have a larger sidewalk, but we did over here because we kind of wanted that continuity of the same width of the sidewalk here, and we set it back over here along Oakey Street. So that we're hoping, I mean, I still don't think the sidewalk's big enough to get tree boxes or anything like that. We would not meet the DDOT standards, but it does give the ability for people to walk, 2 and 3 side by side down the sidewalk without having to go into the street.
What is the actual width of the sidewalks?
I think right now we're right at 10 feet. We don't have an official survey yet, but I think that'll be right at 10 feet with our 5-foot setback.
Question. Okay, you saying the sidewalk on Gallaudet, you're not going to set it back, because I know for a fact that those sidewalks are very slim and it's hard for 2x2, no less 3x3. And you have to walk one behind the other. So
we'll verify those.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a couple of questions, but I'm not sure if the other person that was speaking is done. Okay.
I'm going to do a quick screen share just so folks can just, I've got a Google Street View of the, what that looks like right now. Just so so this is the corner of the building. And I think this is what Commissioner Rhodes was saying, on the left side here on the Gallaudet Street.
Yeah.
You can see how narrow it is. So obviously this is like probably not even 3 feet. So obviously this building would be replaced by a new building that would be set in 10,
Right.
new proposed sidewalk would be 10 feet back. The new building would come forward, but again, the sidewalk, it would come forward probably around here, but there would be a 10-foot sidewalk around the entire perimeter of this building, if I understand the proposal correctly.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, we will verify those when we get the official meets and bounds survey.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's definitely very congested and almost unsafe here, so it'll be more luxurious in the future.
Yeah, I think if we have to set it back a couple of feet, we'll work with the client on that.
Jeff, I got a couple questions. This is Commissioner Hoffman in 5D06. There's quite a few above ground cables in that area. Are you planning on putting those in the ground or moving them in some such way to allow to have a building right in the middle of that area?
Yeah, we'll have to work with all the utility companies on that. Yeah, either relocating them or putting them in the ground.
Okay. Yeah, because that is definitely something that's sticking out to me right now.
Yeah.
And then how much are we reserving for IZ on the current proposal? You said 13%, I believe, earlier.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you know how many units that would be off the top of your head?
I think it's approximately like a 12 to 15, something like that, units.
And do you know what size those units would be? Would it be 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, studios?
I think a good portion of them would make up to 2 and 3 bedrooms, maybe with a couple of ones thrown in. But yeah, I think there will be the larger units.
Cool. I obviously look forward to working with you and all of your team on, as well as Commissioner Rhodes, on some community improvement projects potentially tied to this project. But I think my most major concern are the cables throughout the neighborhood with this building, and just construction logistics, I think, would be quite difficult to do.
Also, with the affordable units, do we know how much they will be?
You mean the affordability level?
Yes.
60% of the median family income.
I have a question. Will the PUD application itself call out specifically which unit numbers or which, the exact numbers of the IZ units? Like how many will be 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms? Will that be called out exactly?
That will be called out in the application at some point. So it may not be with the initial filing, but it will be required as we go through the PUD process. So it may be prior to the public hearing that those units will be identified, but definitely before the zoning commission acts on the project, they will require that information.
Jeff, I have a couple questions. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the members of the zoning committee in 5D06. What is the required parking count for the new zone that you're wishing to change to?
It would be 1 for 3.
133?
No, it would be 1 parking space for every 3 units.
And are you, how many spaces total are you planning to provide?
We're working through that right now, but we'll meet that requirement.
And is that going to be like below grade garage parking?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
It'll be below grade garage.
And then how many loading spaces are required?
There are 2. 2
Okay.
bays are required, and we'll meet that requirement as well.
Okay. And with with your anticipated, with the project moving forward, do you anticipate that this is going to be designed under the newer DC building codes? Those are the 2017 DC building code. We're kind of in an overlapping time period right now. So some projects are still moving forward with the 2013 building codes. So I'm just curious.
No, I think our PED won't be approved for a year, so I think we'll be under 2017 by then.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
To follow up on Andrew's question, so the parking spaces that you mentioned, one parking space for every 3 units, will there be additional parking for the retail, or is I'm assuming 123 units divided by 3, that's 41 parking space. Is that the total you expect, or will there be any additional for the retail?
No, the retail has a separate calculation, and we'll provide, we'll meet all the parking requirements for the retail and the residential.
Okay, thank you.
We might slightly exceed the requirement.
Will any of the parking be public and for the area?
I think we're pretty early on. I think I'll let, as we work through that, we'll provide those details to you guys on how that parking will work.
Mm-hmm.
And I will just say, just to kind of address this issue early, DDOT will discourage parking
Yes,
things available
they will.
for people outside of the building, because they do not, they would see that as encouraging people to drive to the site, which is contrary to their policy.
One thing I can add too, I think that we are planning a couple of car share spaces. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, I'll push back a little bit on that. I think that entire area is way over. There's not nearly enough parking for the activity that goes on there. So I would fight DDOT to say that public access parking would be unacceptable, because traffic and parking is a huge deal right now as it stands.
mm-hmm. As designers, we're always against it. Because DDOT's pushing against us to provide it. That's for sure.
And actually, the way the regulations are written now, you provide like above, at some threshold above what's required, they'll penalize you. So there you go.
Interesting.
I have a question again about the affordability. How much will the market rate be for the 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and the 3 bedrooms? Do we have any figures?
You mean in terms of rent?
In terms of rent for the market rate?
Yeah, we don't have that information now. And again, this project will probably open for at least 3 years. That's assuming we were starting today, 4 probably years. So, there's just no way we can predict.
Okay. And also, when we had our meeting before, just for the sake of this group, ProFish will continue to operate. They will operate in the new building, 1900.
So they may operate a portion, they may occupy a portion of the ground floor retail PDR space, but it won't be an operation. It won't be the same scale and type of operation that's there now. Really what's envisioned is a much smaller scale, probably market and retail, and with some small production uses that are related, for the area, but nothing at the scale that.
And where would all the ProFish trucks be parked? I remember us discussing that too.
So they would have to relocate any operations that aren't going to take place at that site would need to be relocated, and they don't know where that will be yet. Again, we're really kind of 4 years out. So they have some time to plan, but they don't have any set in stone yet.
Are these apartments or condos?
Jeff, do you know if they're planning them as just rental at this point?
I think we'll probably design it so it could be either. I don't think that determination has been made. I think, you know, a lot of that is how you meter the building. So I think we'll design it so it could be either option. You know, as Layla mentioned, it's 3-4 years down the road before this would be optional. Operational. So I think the design of the building will be that it could be a condo. But that has not been determined yet.
Just wondering if it's turned in, if it's either, would that determine the rate of the rent? Whether
So if it's rental, yes, that will be one set of rent schedule. But if it's condo, then it's owned, you know, and there will be the market for whatever the market demands for the sale of each of those units.
So what about the
This is
I apologize. Go ahead.
Hey, this is Stacy, a member of the zoning committee and a neighbor. I was just curious, is this going to be a stick constructed building over a double concrete podium?
Good question. I think right now the assumption is that it could be that. We're also looking at the idea that it could be like the hybrid system, the Infinity or light gauge. So I think we're kind of studying from a pricing, what's going to happen with the pricing in the market right now with wood construction versus some of the hybrid systems out there. But I think it will be a double podium. Yep.
Yeah.
And one or two of those scenarios, it would be a double podium.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but I'm glad you asked that, Stacy.
I'm glad we have experts on the committee who know to ask those questions.
One other question, Jeff.
Yeah. Jeff, really quick. For the IZ units, are those going to be, I guess if you haven't decided either, but you know, apartments or condos?
No, well, the requirement, you still have the requirement, even if it's a condo. But if the units are owned, the median family income requirement is 80%, not 60%.
Okay.
Jeff, I think it's nice the green space and the green roof, and I'm assuming you're handling stormwater with that as well.
Yes.
Or some element of that. Is there any way or any plans to have some green space in the public space on the sidewalk? You know, maybe it's trees, maybe it's something else.
I don't think we'll meet the DDOT standards and have the clear path because the tree boxes, I mean, we were looking at that early on. We don't have an official survey yet, but I think we'll be short to add tree boxes. Like per the DDOT standards, could there be planters and things like that? I mean, we could certainly look at an idea like that. But I don't think we'll meet the DDOT standards for trees. There's not enough there.
Hey, this is Stacy again. It might have been in the details and I could have missed it. Are you guys going to have any canopies over the sidewalk that could be green or something like that to sort of, you know, replace the effect that trees would have for the sidewalks?
Yeah, we've talked about that, but we haven't started really designing that level of detail yet. But we'll certainly have a canopy over the main entrance that will go over the sidewalk. But we'll look at the other ideas as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I had another question. This is Derek here. For the benefit of my own and the other others in the community. So stage one, that application really is more focused on the form and what will be included, but not so much on materials until PUD level 2, right?
Well, you have an option to either file just a stage one PUD application or a consolidated PUD application, which is basically stage 1 and stage 2 together.
So what is your plan with that?
We're planning to proceed with the consolidated PUD. So it will include the kind of building design, materials, and specifics about the project.
Right.
Beyond just mass.
I understand that.
Uh-huh.
So I guess my second question then is a big part of that PUD process is community benefit. So I want to understand if this meeting is your only way to be in touch with the community members to identify possible community benefit, or are you asking us to recommend ideas for that? Or what are you planning? Are you just planning to do some sort of like involvement in other meetings to identify what the community benefit would be to provide?
So
I guess there's a whole array of community benefits, right?
Right. So the benefits and amenities, kind of the guidelines for the benefits and amenities are set forth in the zoning regulations. We believe there are many aspects of this project that would qualify as benefits and amenities under the regulations, including the like kind of the green or sustainable design elements, providing affordable housing above and beyond what is required, and then some of the improvements in the public space. Outside of that, I think probably the most prudent approach is to work with Commissioner Rhodes on coordinating the benefits and amenities package beyond what's kind of built into the project design. And so we were invited to, to present this evening very early on in our design phase. But I think going forward, it's most appropriate for me to coordinate through Commissioner Rhodes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. One thing that I do wonder is what resources DC offers you about, the standard, the design. I know that in the Union Market area, the developers there have worked with the city to identify the streetscape standard, and so that can become beneficial to that location, to that area. So that does make me wonder, if we have this in that space, it's a heavily industrial area. So I wonder what future modifications are with this comprehensive plan, and what standards are you trying to set? Because you will be one of the largest newer buildings in that area. Other buildings in that area are repurposed or are smaller, like a family home.
So I'm going to start, Jeff, and then if you want to chime in. So as we go through the PUD process, we'll work very closely with DDOT. So they will weigh in on kind of the site plan and improvements in the public space generally through the PUD process. And then once you get through the PUD process, you work closely with DDOT on through their public space committee. And in either or both of those processes, DDOT will be very clear on what standards have to be met, whether it's paving, width of the sidewalks, location of vaults in public space, all of the things that would affect the public realm. DDOT will weigh in on and will guide a lot of that design. So Jeff, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add.
Yeah, I think I could just add there. I think generally as the application moves forward, you'll see that we provide enlarged scale drawings of what is planned in public space as part of the PUD application. Those usually include a fair amount of detail that includes DDOT's comments as we work with them throughout this process. So I think as the application moves forward, you'll see a lot of detail on exactly what we're proposing in public space. And those also include materials and enlarged elevations that are colored so you can kind of see what's being proposed. For example, they'll want us to provide a couple of outdoor bike areas for visitors. So we'll have to locate exactly where those go.
But they are approved in a separate process.
Yeah, yeah, we'll have to show the
them
general,
in the, right.
we'll show a general location for them.
I have another question. With the 3 bedrooms, we're anticipating on having families, such as children. Here in Ivy City, we don't have any play areas for children. So if you're anticipating on having families occupy the 3 bedrooms, what we're doing is working to have a play space over at the Cromell site. What are the amenities that will be inside the building for children other than the plant area on the roof?
I don't think we've advanced that far yet. I made a note and we'll study that with our client.
Thank you.
I have a question. Even though it is a different site, do you have thoughts, opinions to share with the community on what you think should happen at the Cromell site?
No.
Yeah.
I'm listening as a member of the public, but my name is Perry Sonoruzi. I'm the director of Empower DC, and I've worked with the Ivy City community since about 2001. And I just have to raise this issue, especially for the commissioners on the line, that I really appreciate the questions about community benefits. And yes, I mean, this is just 2 doors down from the historic Alexander Cromell School and its 2-acre site that the community has been working for 40 plus years to have restored for community use. And a member of this development team, the Profish owner, is part of the development team for the Cromell School site. So I don't think we should be talking about them in a vacuum. These projects are all connected, they're all related. In fact, when the attorneys submitted their application, their request to the City Council and the Office of Planning to change the comprehensive plan and the future land use map, they submitted the same documents for the Cromell School site, for the United House of Prayer site, which is adjacent, and for the Profish site. So my thought on that is that it appears that the developers are thinking about developing the whole block. And right now, the proposal before you is for the Profish site. The best community benefit agreement would be for the owner of this site, Greg Caston and the Profish team, to work with the community to back off the plan to take up so much space on the Cromell School site, so that the community could actually have the large park and play space that is going to be needed, not from the families who've been there forever and from the new families that you're bringing in. I don't think anybody is against the development, but we got to make sure that the community needs, the long-standing community needs, are addressed. And it's kind of not really that honest to talk about them as though they're all separate when it's the same people involved. And the whole reason why y'all are proposing this is because he's expecting to move his operation to the Cromell site. So we really should be talking about them in connection to one another and the important important needs that the community needs met.
Thank you for raising that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Layla, do you have any comments on that?
Nope. Nope.
Can you acknowledge, is that, I mean, was there anything that Priesta said, is it true, or is that?
I I'm just going to say that this application stands on its own. It's not, as far as the application to amend the comprehensive plan, it's totally appropriate and not uncommon that adjacent parcels would have the same land use designation. The district owns the Cromell School site. Profish owns the site that's before the ANC. And so in terms of just standing in the standard of review, they're two totally separate parcels. And
Hey,
again,
Layla, real quick. I want to give you one more chance to answer that question because that's a super important point that was just made. And I really need you to give me a concrete answer on what was just brought up, because that's going to change my entire attitude on this project if it's true.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear a question, but I think I just summarized. Let me be very clear. The comment was that there was an amendment or a proposed amendment to the comprehensive plan for this site, the United House of Prayer, and the Cromell School site. And my comment or response to that was that it's totally appropriate and not uncommon for adjacent parcels to have the same land use designation. Or, I mean, there's nothing unusual about that. My second point was that the site that the Cromell School site is owned by the district. This site is owned by Profish, and they are, of course, in proximity to one another, but this application stands on its own as a privately owned piece of property. And so the kind of standard of review for this site stands on its own. That's my only comment or response.
Well, okay, so when we had our meeting before, I asked that question to Greg Caston about adding, going further into the Cromell site, and he told me no. He told me that he said that he wasn't going to develop anything further than the 1900 Fenwich.
Right.
And does that still stand?
This application only pertains to 1900 Fenwick Street. Now, I recall that being the scope of your question last time. And so, no, this application will not be expanded to include the Cromell School site. That does not mean United House of Prayer is a different owner than this site. So there's nothing, we can't control whether or not they put in an application to redevelop their site. But yes, they are all part of the same comp plan amendment process. But, again, that's typical, there's nothing unusual about 3 adjacent parcels having the same land use designation. That's kind of basic planning exercise, a basic planning exercise.
But just to be clear, though, this is not 3 adjacent parcels that have the same land use designation because it came through a community planning process. It was approved by the ANC. It was applied for by Holland and Knight on behalf of developers, went straight through to the Office of Planning and was accepted, and has never come before the community. So that's not typical. That's circumventing the community process. And just one last comment will say that, Ivy City has requested a small area plan. They requested it in the past and were ignored, and now they've requested it again. And I just want to make sure that the other commissioners know that, right now they're trying to increase the comp plan would increase the density along New York Avenue to high density commercial. You have you got the Profish site, United House of Prayer, and the Cromell School site up for moderate, medium density residential. The site where the school buses are, that is also pending development. So this is a lot of development in a small neighborhood that is rapidly gentrifying, a historic Black neighborhood that's rapidly gentrifying, where the community needs, the longstanding community needs, have not yet been addressed. And so again, it's not opposing development, but it's saying, let's address the community needs, and let's be honest that all of that development is connected. Whether or not you're applying for this one separately, we understand, but and the reason why the small area plan is needed is so that we can look at them as a whole and understand the impact as a whole, and then be able to address things like community benefits. Because, you know, saying that you're going to have a little setback or a roof garden for the people who live there, that doesn't actually help the community. The community needs a community center, a large park and play space at Cromell School, and your client is actively working against that.
And you know,
Actually not true. That's actually
all,
that's not a true statement.
Greg, yeah, Greg, let's just say this,
Yeah,
with all
it's
due
not a true
respect to
statement, that's all.
yeah, with all due respect to Ms. Neruzzi, this application can be approved and stand on its own with or without the Cromell School. So, you know, we can have this, we can continue to have the conversation if you feel it's important to have it now. We can have it offline, but this application is not subject to the Cromell School being approved and vice versa. Okay.
I appreciate that. And I would just suggest that as you have the community benefit agreement discussion with the commissioners, that the commissioners understand that the Cromell School should be part of that agreement, even if it's not part of this application, because it is part of the community and it is part of something that the developer of the site is trying to be part of. So I think there's, you know, a discussion that needs to happen, because you're not gonna be able to deliver much community benefit on the Profish site. But by virtue of your presence in the neighborhood and what you're trying to do in the neighborhood, you could deliver some community benefit.
And let me clarify one thing for Commissioner Rhodes' benefit, where public properties like the Cromell School have a community benefits agreement. Private PUDs or privately owned projects, we have a benefits and amenities package that's part of the order, but it's not through a community benefits agreement. So I just want to make that distinction. There won't be a community benefits agreement as part of this PUD.
So we're running over our schedule a little bit here, but I think this has been a very good debate. I think this will probably be discussed heavily at the next ANC meeting tonight. Normally these meetings are sparsely attended and very quiet, but you know, I completely agree with Parisa that the Cromell site is of significant importance to the ANC and the community. It has historical significance, and I do think it is fair that we consider, you know, this, and we look through the lens in a holistic, comprehensive manner. So, you know, I just think this, I'm glad we're having these discussions now, a good 40 to 45 days before the PUD is actually submitted. That way you can get as much feedback from the commissioners and the community as possible.
And right, okay, and that's perfectly fine.
I want to do a quick, does anyone have any final comments?
I also think it's important that the commissioners and everyone understand that I've been in Ivy City every single day of my life since 1988, well before Parisa was there, well before everyone else. And I think very highly of Ivy City and hire people within Ivy City and have done a lot of stuff here. And I think there's a lot of mistruths out there that are spread about me. And I don't want to say anymore. We're here for the zoning component of this with the zoning commission at your invitation. We're not here to have the discussion that Parisa wants to have right now. We can have that at another time.
Thank you, Greg. Anyway, with that, I think we've gathered a lot of questions, and hopefully we'll try to get some more answers between the ANC meeting. Do we have any final comments from the commissioners on the phone?
For me.
Okay.
I do want to just point out, I got a note from my colleague who's a planner, who said the entire New York Avenue corridor is identified as a target planning area and a generalized policy map. It includes Ivy City, which is an indication that the Office of Planning is looking to do a small area plan for that corridor. So, so I would encourage you to work work with the Office of Planning on this small area plan component that you were talking about, Ms. Norris.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're inquiring about how, I mean, it would be good if you know for sure. We weren't sure how far into Ivy City the New York Avenue plan would address, but I agree it should. New York Avenue, greatly affects the whole of Ivy City, so hopefully that will be the case, or we'll work towards it.
Okay, so as far as tonight's meeting, I want to just put a pin in this particular PUD application. Are there neighbors attending the meeting who wanted to discuss another agenda item, whether they want to do an addition on their home or whether there any general zoning questions? Because that often happens. Does anyone have a non 1900 Fenwick Street question for the zoning committee tonight? I don't think, okay. All right, look, with that, I appreciate everybody's time. I think this discussion is going to be continued both offline as well as at the next ANC meeting, which occur second Tuesday of every month. I'm going to sign off and I appreciate. Yes.
I'm sorry, Kevin. So are you putting this on the agenda for the next ANC meeting?
Oh, I have no power to put anything on any agenda. That is for the ANC commissioners.
Yeah, we can put it on the agenda.
Okay, so Commissioner Rhodes.
Yeah, we have our committee of the whole meeting next Tuesday, so we can discuss the agenda at that point, and we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I thank everybody, neighbors and Leila and Jeff and the architects and everybody. Really appreciate, and Greg, everyone attending tonight. And hopefully we can figure out a plan that makes everybody happy and maximizes the community benefit and respects Crummell School.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.